Hey, my friends.
What up,
Here we are
friends?
once again with another episode of your podcast. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you, sharing these intriguing topics from this environment.
Valessa, what the F is that voice? That's the deli guy, man.
Today, I bring you an episode about the events that
He's bringing you an episode about the events. All right?
just occurred on Thursday, July 25th. First of all, I'm sorry because I always try to research and verify facts so I don't show you false information or anything. Destato.
That sounded like some Parappa the Rapper video game shit or some Tekken shit right there.
Thing. Destato. That you may see on many other channels that are only dedicated to spreading lies. Here we want to show the reality, what really happens. But today, well, this issue is grabbing all the spotlight. Since obviously it is something historic in the Ocran and undoubtedly the event of the century, and since you guys are asking me a lot, I'll try to give you my opinion and also tell you what I could
The event of the century, I agree. Well, I don't know about the century, but when it comes to criminality, if the way this heist is looking, the way it was pulled off, they killed that shit, boy. They did that shit like a movie. They're gonna make movies out of this shit.
what I could investigate with my sources. There's a flood of information with many hypotheses and theories about what happened.
Yep.
Everyone is speculating.
Yep.
No one wants to be left behind.
Nope.
So everyone starts saying a bunch of nonsense.
Yep.
Information in these cases takes time to come out. And it's released little by little and only flow in close circles. That's why I take my time with the episodes, so I don't tell you things that aren't true.
Bunch of
because
bullshit.
there is no point in being the first to say something only for it to turn out to be a lie.
Facts.
You end up looking worse.
Facts.
And that's not my style. So I'd rather avoid being like those crazies who have channels and talk just to talk without knowing anything about how this is. I also want to make a clarification because I know many of you follow the Instagram account Bien Velico Zo1. And he
Bien Velico 1 is the channel that I got the phone call from that was corroborating Mayo's account of what happened that I translated. That's the Instagram that came from.
And he posted on his stories that I told him to post something saying that both sides were recruiting people. That is 100% false. I never told him any of that. I like things to be clear and as they are. If I say something, I stand by it. But those messages weren't from my account. Someone used the podcast's logo and pretended to be me. But well, so now let's analyze the events and everything that has happened so you understand the context of these unprecedented events. Thursday, July 25th, year 2024. Joaquin Guzman Lopez and Ismael Zambada Garcia arrived in a private plane, King Air 200, a twin-engine turboprop to Santa Teresa Airport, very close to the city of El Paso, Texas, coming from a city in northern Mexico. Here's a video of the plane arriving. On their arrival, they were greeted by a large group of police officers and agents from different security agencies, such as the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and the Central Intelligence Agency, ATF, HCI, and others. Later, they were arrested and taken into federal custody. Here, I'm showing you the video of them getting off the plane. Now listen to me carefully. In cases like this, they usually never tell the truth, just as it was officially. but the reality always leaks out unofficially. Now, I'm going to tell you everything that's been said about this incident. All right. So first, it was said that Joaquin and Yoma both surrendered.
Okay, he's going to be calling Mayo Yoma. Maybe it's something that I should do on the channel too. He's probably trying to avoid ad suitability issues and demonetizations. So when he says Pacho, he's talking about Chapo. When he says Yoma, he's talking about Mayo.
So first, it was said that Joaquin and Yoma both surrendered to the federal agents based on a prearranged agreement, and that they had been carrying out these negotiations for quite a while, since Yoma has health problems and wanted to retire from the business to rest, and because of that, a deal had been made with the United States government. It was also mentioned that the pilot made a mistake and landed at an airport on the United States side instead of landing on the Mexican side. It was also said that Yoma and Joaquin were arrested when they tried to board the plane. Seeing it, it looked like they were in U.S. territory as if they were in Mexico. Another version is that they were...
The accident, y'all, the pilot messed up, bro. And
arrested in Mexico and...
That's the ghost. The ghost is the pilot. That's the guy we haven't heard about at all. Not even a little bit.
Plane. Seeing it, it looked and Joaquin were arrested when they tried to board the plane. Seeing it, it looked like they were in U.S. territory as if they were in Mexico. Another version is that they were arrested in Mexico and immediately taken to the United States. Another one is that they boarded the plane in Hermosillo, Sonora, along with American agents, because they surrendered themselves to them in Mexican territory. And that's how they were flown to Texas in a plane. Then another version comes out. That said, only Joaquin had surrendered and had tricked Yoma into boarding the plane, with the pretext of going to see some landing stripes and some land. As hours went by, a new version emerged, suggesting that Yoma was not fooled, and they didn't went to sea any lands, nor to some tracks, but that Joaquin, after a long time of negotiations with the American agencies, he made a deal to surrender, and that he summoned the Yoma to a meeting where he captured, tied him up, and put him on the plane to take him to the United States. This version did not come from the government, but from Yoma's lawyer, and that is very important, so don't forget it. And well, folks, up until today, as I'm making this episode, that's what's been said about this plot. Those are the versions that have circulated. Every YouTuber, every journalist has their...
Bro, we've seen all of them, right? Now we know that some of them are not true. Did any of you people who were wrong step up and say that shit? Probably not. The people that sat on the fence, that's cool. You needed more information, like a smart human being would need. You know what I'm saying? You waited for that information, you made your decision. But to the other ones that was ready to die on that hill, he turned himself in, this, that. They walk back in the bushes. They got nothing to say after that.
Their version. And they all...
We heard mad theories for weeks and weeks and weeks. And every time something changed, it changed. When he wrote the letter, all of a sudden people were saying, oh man, he smoked his own security just to make it look real. Like, come on, man. What are you talking about?
Claim to have a source in the United States government. In the end, there are just too many versions being said. The only common denominator in most of them is that Joaquin, also known as El Güero or Kikín, turned himself in. This agreement granted them immunity in exchange for providing information about rival cartels and other Ocran actors, which included snitching on people and cargo. The Yoma can't be without his ranch. He is a man who is terrified of being locked up. And I don't think he would want to spend the rest of his days and his old age behind bars. That seems unbelievable to me, but hey, he is the top head of Ocran in Mexico. And just because he's not out there showing off his power doesn't mean he's less powerful than others. On the contrary, as I was telling you, I mean, he is all...
He said that man need his ranch. The last thing he would want is to be unalived in an American prison.
About negotiations. But in the end, he was the crown jewel for the United States. Neither the Chapitos nor Chomen were as valuable as Yoma in this context, of how valuable he was for the United States government. Since they about his connections, his relationships with the highest levels of government for so many decades, and that made him the most valuable asset. Now, let's move on to the reason why the Chapitos took this action. As you already know, the four brothers are accused in various courts in the United States, but let's focus on Joaquin. He has at least two accusations, one in the District of Columbia and another in the District of Illinois. It should not be surprising to learn that the leaders of the organizations have communication or dealings with the United States government. Like I told you, since 2001, Pocha and Yoma were doing it. Through those negotiations, it was that Vicentillo tried to arrange his surrender to the United States in 2009. And that's why he met with U.S. agents in Mexico City, but things didn't went well for him. Since he was detained, in 2013 and 2014, the four Chapitos, Mini, and the Licenciado, they had negotiations with the U.S. government also to arrange a surrender. Emma also communicated with those people. After 2019, the four Chapitos had communication with U.S. agents, always looking for deals and negotiations to try to get more protection. Sometimes you reach agreements, sometimes you don't. It's this. After Ovidio's arrest in 2023, Joaquin approached the United States government. He always had it in mind to surrender. He didn't want to live hidden because that's just not his style. Then, with Ovidio's extradition, the outlook became clearer for Joaquin. And he already knew what needed to be done. I'm talking about turning himself in. It was just a matter of coming up with a good plan.
They got the man that people still now, with him in custody, believe could never be caught. And just threw him on a plane, brought him over to the U.S.
With a strategy to achieve the maximum benefit for everyone. All right, they made a whole plan worthy of tactical geniuses and master strategists. Because obviously this wasn't planned overnight. It took some time to set up the whole scenario, to know based on the negotiations which currency was the most valuable. Take full advantage of all the action to get the maximum benefit in every aspect. Well, since they had the target already, defined as the one getting much more benefit from the U.S. government. In this case, Mr. Yoma. And watch out. I don't mean to say that from the beginning they negotiated taking him tied up to the U.S. No. But if the government tells you who is their top target, the one they would most like to have, well, obviously with that, you know who you need to go to. So the next step is to come up with a plan. Imagine that. The only person who was in their way, well, kind of was in their way, to consolidate their empire was Yoma. Because practically, El Yoma gave in to almost everything the Chapitos asked for, just to avoid a confrontation with them. So as they say, killing two birds with one stone, but this time, not just two birds, but the whole flock. And it also looks good to the U.S. government, giving more leverage when it comes to sentencing decisions. And they end up with practically all the power in Sinaloa, as they won't have the counterweight that the Yoma posed to them. And besides, they stay on good terms with the state government of Sinaloa. All right.
You see how diplomacy, because he said Mayo tried his best to keep things peaceful with the Chapitos and made decisions through the guise of making sure that things stayed peaceful, got snatched up for it. What was that conversation like? They standing around smoking a joint? Well, we could take the old man. Everybody giggles, plan goes into effect. Like, that's crazy. That's some Ocean's 11 gangster shit right there.
Now let's talk about what my friends in Culiacan told me. regarding the meeting. In politics, as in
Regarding the meeting.
terms with the state government.
Hit the like button, y'all. Salutes.
In politics, as in Ocran, there are always rivalries and problems. In this case, the governor of Sinaloa had a deep-rooted problem with Mr. Hector Melesio Quen, and that was causing many conflicts. So the only way to solve them, as it always happens in Sinaloa, is backing things up with the Yoma, so that he can be the mediator and the way to solve the problem. And this was exactly the keystone that made it possible for events to unfold.
Politicians got a beef. Them politicians got to get that figured out. Who they supposed to call? The Yoma. Like Miguel Lopez said, in Culican. In Culican. That's the deli guy translating, man. Perfect way to get him where they need him to be. Mayo slipped. He forgot the main rule and that there is no peace without a war. You can't skip the step. Once you do, you land in El Paso. Después, the viejo se puso bruto and the Chapitos smelled it. When you have a legend, right? A legendary run of not being caught. When you have that kind of lore around you that is so heavy that when you do get caught, people can't believe it months later and weeks later. They can't fathom that it happened. When you have that kind of aura around you, right? Kind of like Anderson Silva and Mike Tyson, how they used to have fighters beat before they walked to the ring because just the thought of them coming towards you was enough to terrify you. You know what I'm saying? When you have that kind of legend wrapped around you, you got it all figured out, right? Most of the time, the people that might have had a chance to take you out, it didn't even cross their mind. Why didn't it cross their mind? Because of the legend that surrounds you. It's just getting past that thought. Maybe the Chapitos were the ones that got past that thought and said, you know what? We're going to pull this trigger on this project that nobody would even consider, think of. And that right there is probably the most difficult part of the whole decision or the whole plan of what it took to get them. After that, it's just doing what they do. Murking people, snatching people, this, that, and the other. But you have to get to the realization, I'm going to do this. I'm taking this old man with me. I'm throwing him in the trunk. We going to the United States and I'm going to cut a deal. I'm young enough to have a life. His life is done. This is the trigger that we got to pull. This is that red button we got to hit. And I think once that's done, and nobody really did that throughout the years. Nobody really believed that they could pull it off. You got to believe you could pull it off in order for it to happen. And that's why it has all of y'all, not all of y'all, but the ones that are dumbfounded. I can't believe it. Jefe got caught. He's human, bro. And with 40 years of comfort and nobody, all it took was 5 years of terror to put the thought in people's minds to not mess with him. Until somebody decided, you know what, we're going to mess with him. We're going to take him. Let's get it. What? What are we talking about here?
And this was exactly the keystone that made it possible for events to unfold. Because like this, if there are politicians involved, those who know the Yoma know that he is very accommodating with them. So, if the meeting was set by the Chapitos somewhere they had full control, but there were politicians involved, then Yoma would attend. Because if not, most likely that meeting would have taken place on Yoma's territory. Imagine, all that area, from UDO to Culiacancito and even El Tamarindo, the Chapitos have filled with offices. So basically, the Yoma's people couldn't do anything there anymore. But now let's go into what the meeting was like. It went like this. A meeting was scheduled. Joaquin was going to be there also. The prof, as Yoma commonly referred to Quen Ojeda, would be there. And supposedly someone from Governor Rochamoya's side as well, to fix the problems they had between the governor and Quen. But the reality... It was said that meeting was to resolve problems for the Chapitos in the United States. A person who was just outside Huertos del Pedregal area. He told me he didn't know exactly which runway they took him to, but he did said. There are two possible runways where that plane could have taken off. One is in the Berlin field. Here are the coordinates. because he saw that Joaquin left Huertos del Pedregal heading towards Culiacancito, where the Campo Berlin airstrip is located, but also it could have been heading towards El Dorado, as another source tells me, that from Huertos del Pedregal, from there, he took the road to El Dorado.
Mind you, he's talking to sources we don't have, and even they give him two different directions. You know, it just be like that. 298 said Jay had the whole story figured out since day one. Ocran confirmed them boys been there. They know what's going on. Salutes.
Dorado to reach the runway. I'm going to show you the coordinates, and they confirm that the plane took off from there. Here it goes, and this is confirmed. At 200%, it was said that plane had been seen in previous days on that runway near Dorado, that plane and another one similar but white and blue, and that it was also a King Air plane. So there were two King Air planes on that runway. Another source told me that this plane, which I'm going to show you a picture of so you can see it, was one of the things that the Chapitos stole from the Valenzuelas. You remember, right? Gabriel and Jorge Valenzuela. What I can confirm is that the plane never departed from Sonora. It took off from the outskirts of Culiacan, from one of the Chapitos airstrips, and that I can confirm for you. Everything that was initially going around, that they left in a Cessna and even gave the pilot's name, that was all a mistake. Why? Because they saw the flight plan of a plane that flew at approximately the same time as Joaquin's, and that plane departed from Hermosillo. And that is why there was that confusion. But Joaquin's plane initially didn't have a flight plan ready for takeoff, which is very common on flights in this environment. Sometimes the transponder isn't on, so authorities can't detect the plane, and they don't announce that they are flying. Only the pilot is paying attention to the radio, listening for any air traffic. There are times, for example, when in the flight plan, they say they are going to Chihuahua. But while flying above Chihuahua, they suddenly change the flight plan to another place. It's nothing out of the ordinary. Well, so far so good.
And that's for the people that are not in the know. You guys watch Cartel TikTok. You see the videos with the airplane hangars with the airplanes in them, and the Mercedes G-Wagons that are all white with gold trim. You see those things, right? What makes you think those guys are with flight plans? Nah, they go up, they switch shit, they move around, they doing their thing. It's what they do. But people give information in the comments, but you don't know that information. You don't know what their process is. Well, the plane would have got shot out the sky. All right, well, there's ways around shit. That's how smuggling happens.
Now, what happened in Huertos del Pedregal with the others? With Yoma's bodyguards, the people from Los Chapitos started to give them treatment. Here is where the key to all this lies. There was only one person they didn't tie up, and that person is Fausto Corrales. And why didn't they tie him up? It's because he is very close friends with the Chapitos. That's why they forgave him, and he was the only one not touched at the meeting. And after Joaquin went with Yoma to the track, they ordered Fausto and told him that this bomb is about to explode.
So he didn't get to the rest of that Fausto story, right? So they let Fausto go. Fausto was supposedly Melesio Quinn's driver. Supposedly, you seen us cover the video on a live recently of the gas station where supposedly they unalived Melesio Quinn. But was the driver in the car with him, Fausto? Like, what's happening here? Who's lying? I don't know about that gas station video. I'm not convinced with that.
This bomb is about to explode. And the Chapitos right now, at this very moment, as I am making this podcast, which is on the 3rd of August, right now, they're looking for Fausto, apparently to resign him, to remove another loose end.
So he's a loose end now. A loose end that they left loose because they was cool with him. That didn't do him no good. Now they on his ass again.
To remove another loose end, because that one is very dangerous.
Crazy.
Because if it gets into the hands of the government or the people from Mayito Flaco and they squeeze him to get the truth out of him, he is going to tell them everything, how it happened and how the events unfolded. So this makes it very clear that it was all a well-organized plan by the Chapitos. And it's also clear now to all of us that there was no incursion of U.S. agents into Mexican territory, as there were no agents in Huertos del Pedregal. The ones who were there, I already told you who they were. I've been informed that there's a video of Yoma tied up, but don't take my word for it. I haven't seen it. But within the inner circle of the Chapitos, that's what you hear. Maybe one day they'll bring it to light. I don't know. Do you remember I told you weeks ago that Ratoncito was all...
If there is a video of Mayo getting tied up by the Chapitos, right? That video will air. We will react to it on this channel, right? And people will still deny what they're looking at. Then they'll call it AI or some shit.
Do you remember I told you weeks ago that Ratoncito was already cooperating with the prosecutor's office? And that liar lawyer of his said he wasn't planning to cooperate. And now he's coming out saying that they are cooperating and that Joaquin turned himself in. We couldn't expect anything less than a letter. You know that according to the Chapitos, that solves everything. Unfortunately, they already have a record that all the letters they have written are pure lies.
Mind you, that could be part of his agenda. He hates their guts.
So this is no more credible or real than a Honda Corolla. Now I'm going to explain. Why this war of statements and why the lawyer of Los Chapitos emphasizes a lot in this case, making clear that the governments didn't have a part in this, both Mexico and the United States. And for those who still don't understand how the boss ruled without his army of bodyguards as everyone imagines and sees it in fictional TV series, I already told you in a previous episode, you have no idea how the cartels operate. They assume a lot of things because they watch series or listen to corridos and also watch videos made by propaganda organizations where 30, 50, or 200 people come out well-equipped. And you think that's how they actually live, but no. Remember, everyone has their own style, and Yoma's style was to be alone. Several years ago, like in 2017, Yoma was also involved. He was with 1 or 2 trucks, just trusting Yoma, preparing him, setting him up, gaining his confidence, what is known as a decoy operation. 2, lastly, deliver the final blow. Well, friends, until today, which is August 3rd.
He told you. He could just run around with a couple of guys. Because it be like that sometimes.
Where 30...
So you're standing your whole theory on the fact that he should have had more security. That falls flat on a bunch of different occasions.
50 or 200 people come out well-equipped. And you think that's how they actually live, but no. Remember, everyone has their own style. And Yoma's style was to be alone. Several years ago, like in 2017, Yoma was also involved. He was with 1 or 2 trucks, just trusting Yoma, preparing him, setting him up, gaining his confidence. What is known...
His confidence?
English, motherfucker! Do
Damn!
you speak it?
His confidence.
...as a decoy operation. 2, lastly, deliver the final blow. Well, friends, until today, which is August 3rd, which is the day I'm recording this episode, is what journalism knows. Johan Grillo is the only person who has truly spoken the truth about what happened.
We covered that Ian Grillo story on this channel, and we felt like it made sense too.
I know who his source is, and it's a very good source. That source told me as well on July 27th that this is what had happened. But you all know I like confirming before telling you something, so I don't end up like journalists who just want to win and be first with anything, and they say a bunch of nonsense that only makes stuff harder to understand.
I agree with him. That'd be the problem. People want to come out first. Doesn't matter if the information's right or wrong. They just want to say that shit. And blurt that shit out. Like, what? You just said some shit that don't make no sense.
Whatever is said afterward, don't take it as certain. I've already told you the reality of what truly happened. And I'm sorry for all those folks who don't believe that Yoma could have been kidnapped. No one is untouchable, and everyone has a weak point.
Period.
And when there's betrayal involved, it's inevitable that things happen.
Period.
Well, because of all this, you know, there's quite a stir with talks about conflicts and much more. But I think that's enough for today. In the next episode, I'll tell you more of everything that has been happening as a result of this event. The things people say, the things you see, the things you don't see. I'll also explain why a conflict didn't erupt because of what happened. And also, what my friends in Culiacan tell me. I'll cover all that in the next episode about this matter, and I'll tell you other interesting stories related to this event. It's going to be really good.